been born in a chicken age. Right? And he just thought, fuck it. And it's only, 2,000 years now since he chucked it. You don't evolve in that short a period of time, so fuck me. I'm more evolved than Jesus, and precisely similar in key distinct ways, not only neuroanatomically and pathologically, historically, but very, very similar story. The only difference being he had a stepfather. My father is the truth. Come in, you packy bastard! I'm joking, of course. Right, and I was just talking about Britain's open door policy. I was just joking. And, or was I? And here's the thing, right? Come in! Hey! And so, so ingrained into my brain is morality, really. And so, make me a channel of your peace. Right? Whereas you have ingrained immorality into your brain, man. And it's just channeled at you all the time. And 90% of females and 70% of males lack the componentry of their brain to self-guide. So they're guided by society, and society is ringed by sex offenders and a paedophile ring, and a global paedophile ring of genocidal maniacs, and who are systematically killing you as I speak, which is nice. And so you're going along with that, and they can go along with that because you are what they are. They are what you are. They are worse than you. They're lower functioning than you. They don't even have a sliver across the front of their brain. And since they are Zionist Jews, right, which are actually Kurds, basically, they have a disorder. Like black people are the only extraction of man to have sickle cell anemia. Asian and Caucasian don't have that. However, Jews have very specific, unique, genetically inherited degenerative disorders, right? And I'll give you an insight here, right? And go check this out, right? They have a disorder that's inherited, right? Where slowly but surely, long overdue, right? In other words, before it's time, right? Before it's due, rather. Excuse the pun. Right? They turn their hands into claws, their nose into a hook, and their back, oy vey, into a hunch. Right? It's a fact. Right? It's a specific degenerative muscular disorder, right? And muscular skeletal disorder. And they also have, wait for it, right, a brain disorder which, before it's due, takes the brain in the frontal area of the cortex and lobes, right, and turns them into a megalomaniacal paedophile. Check it out. Right? There's another, at least half a dozen more specific genetic disorders peculiar to them due to countless years of inbreeding, which, like Huns from Donald Talks, they would pretend that inbreeding's due to them not wanting to inbreed with anybody else, And that is what you're doing. You're inbreeding with another group of inbred people. However, if they're inbreeding with other people, then of course that's making stronger bonds just through mutations and happenstance. I think I'll adopt one. A happenstance for you, Hen. You're not going to pull many birds with that. You never know. And maybe if you rip your trousers and show her BHS knicker knee tremblers. No. Maybe if you actually just pull a wallet out your back pocket, drop it, and it breaks the sound barrier, you've probably pulled. Here's the thing now, right? What I was saying to you was, so, check this out, right? It's true, right? This is just a few of the things they have wrong with them. Jews, right? Zionist Jews, who you, because of your ingrained immorality, pathologically, slowly but surely turned into a hook-nosed, wank-clawed, hunchbacked, morally insane, megalomaniacal, psychopathic paedophile. Fact, right? And because of the immorality they've ingrained into you since primary concentration camp, is taking advantage of the fact that you are not that much more evolved than them. I can see all this, because I have this additional evolved componentry in my brain. My old man and my so-called mother are fucking diametrically opposed. It's gobsmacking that they actually managed to get together. She is a megalomaniacal female paedophile from the south and north of Ireland with a bit of Scottish in her, and he is a Turkish Asian, kind of Chinesey but predominantly Turkish Asian character who's really quite tall, she's quite small, and they've completely different types of brain, but he is a lizard, really. He's a psychopath, a proper, like, primitive lizard, and she is quite a high functioning, what you call sociopath. However, like I've said, she's a sex offender. And all psychopaths are sex offenders. 90% of females are psychopaths and sex offenders. 70% of males are psychopaths and sex offenders. As I'll discuss in Erol On Pedophiles, the vast majority of paedophiles are female. And
did he just say the majority of pedophiles are female?
What?
Did you just say the majority of pedophiles are female?
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with me. It's just a statement of fact, yeah. Unfortunately. I'll cover it in Erol On Pedophiles shortly. So here's the thing, right? So the people who want you to be as immoral as they are, so they can fucking blend in, right, are doing everything in their so-called power to make it so that you don't notice the slow but sure degeneration of yourself, which mirrors the slow but sure degeneration of their inbred genes, and matches the slow but sure return of the moral law of the universe being turned backwards into your life, and you're the sole recipient of it. Just like if you chuck your arse out the window, even if you gub your missus on the way out the window and try and pull the curtains down with you, which is a really good metaphor for psychopaths who failed in their campaign, They try to destroy everything they can in their exodus, as you saw in Egypt and you're presently seeing in America, basically just destroy everything, fuck everything up, leave as big a mess as possible, and then go over here. However, those behind that have people behind them, and those people are killing them too, and it's just, unfortunately, morally outrageously, I'm watching a species from the future destroying itself so there can be no future. And if there's going to be a future, it's with inbred people who want a world of... Oh, Jesus wept. There's a magical place, we're on our way there, with moms in their millions all under one roof. It's called Spazaraz. I was on a spaceship, right, fucking 20,000 years in the future, and my mother and father, Blip and Blap, turned to each other and said, which meant, son, we're gonna have to drop you off in this shithole. Think about it, right? This planet is the most aptly named planet in the world, right? It sums up people there. Of all the fucking names you could have given it, like Eden, you could have called it anything, right? Shit. Planet shit. Right? Who came up with that? Protestants in Scotland name all the streets, right? Because they're all psychopaths, predominantly. And, anywhere that Catholics are to be housed, it's like Sykeside and Cooperhead and Nix Hill and kill your granny Bogside, and that kind of a thing. whereas they live in, you know, Farquhar and things like that, right? And, you know, Fluffy Feather Down Meadow, and, you know, they're just rat bastards. But no, that's a terrible insult to rats. Rats are empathic. Huns ain't. And so, by psychopaths right across the board, I'm sure it's a psychopath that named the Earth. And why are we still calling it Earth? You know, shit. You know, planet shit. Yeah, it's very aptly named, right? And so, I was up there in the spaceship, right? And I said, Mommy and Daddy, dearest, don't drop me down there, no, Ken, like that, new. And they said, they changed slightly. And they said, you have to. I said, if there's any other way, octopus! And the thing is, right, and then they just put my arse at the fucking spaceship. Now, I went, I'm not joking, I actually said to them, look, Father and Mother dearest, you know, I want to go there. Perhaps I can do some good. And they nearly crashed into the sun laughing. And I said, look, I know I can make a difference. I'm 20,000 years more advanced than they are. You know, I can be a mirror that reflects them exactly as they are. And after they finished laughing, we nearly went into Uranus. And of course, the point being, what I didn't realise is people hate the truth about themselves and lack the componentry to truly see themselves as they are. As St. Bram Stoker showed you in his fantastic piece on psychopaths called Dracula, and where the Count can't see his shell in the mirror, no. Right? He can't see himself, and if you go and you study that book and just think absolutely everything St. Bram Stoker was telling you is precisely not only about psychopathy, how you deal with psychopathy, you execute them. And
Especially if the bastard's female, right? Get that one dealt with first, right?
And so anyway, here I am, right? I'm from the future. I am an alien. I'm superhuman, really. If you want to call yourself human, that is. I don't see you really as being human. If I'm human, you're not human. If you're human, I'm superhuman. They are subhuman reptiles. I've already established that. Right? All they are is an amygdala. So they're just a creature of feeling. And when the creature feels bad, it wants you to feel bad instead. Right? It's emotionally incontinent, you know. It's not developed beyond the potty training stage. And that is also a paedophile. And genocidal, warmongering lunatic, you know. And it gets off on exhilaration because of that flat level of MAO, and that flat perception of the world due to its minuscule, flat amygdaloid cortex, this kind of blunt, flat world that it lives in, where to get what it wants, it just bluntly whacks the mole and wants to keep you down. But as I've said, you know, when it chucks its arse out the window, it's pulling the curtains down and giving you a smash in the mouth. And you, though, have put a trampoline to catch it. The universe has no trampoline, no safety net to catch you. You know, you're throwing your arse out the window after those stupid fucking pricks, and they're moving the trampoline, and they're putting a fucking pit of stakes there for you. You should be going to where they are, as St. Bram Stoker taught you, and putting a stake through their fucking heart. Yeah, that's how Nosferatu was originally portrayed, you know. Yeah, coinkydink. So, right, you need to wake up and stand up, you know. Think of all the hairy-arsed women out there, right? Think about it. They are imbeciles. Like I said recently, a lot of hairy-arsed females, you know, who slid under me when I was fish down on Beaverley, and, you know, they're angry because they've been programmed to be angry by Zionist paedophiles. And they're always imbecilically angry at the common local man, exactly as they've been programmed to do since primary concentration campus, yeah, pathologically ingrained to be immoral and aggressive and nasty, cold, you know, projecting their bad feeling, because they've been taught to compete with men imbecilically, because imbecilic as a beaver competing with a tree, you know. Like, you can't say a beaver's equal to a tree, it's imbecility. However, that is what females are taught, and because females uniformly lack this componentry, as I mentioned earlier, it, in all of them, makes them feel they're the centre of the universe. They're cut off from reality. So you notice in 90% of females, megalomania, which is why most females are paedophiles. All paedophiles are megalomaniacal psychopaths. So when you're cut off from reality like that, like a baby, it thinks it's the centre of the universe, it's very selfish, bratish, spoiled, etc, etc. When it gets more mature, it obviously says, oh here, hang on, I'm being very selfish here, and blah blah blah. 90% of females don't develop beyond that, 70% of males don't develop beyond that. However, males have a balance there called cognitive empathy, which predominantly females lack. And females have a balance called affective empathy, which predominantly the male psychopath lacks, which is why they've always really complemented one another so well through all the ancestry and those success stories. They're the spearhead of all those love stories that have overcome everything. However, they've now taught to compete. The female's told she's equal to men, which is nonsense, but if she believes it as the centre of the universe, the megalomaniac, even though all the great brains through time have said, don't tell females they're equal, because they automatically then think they're superior, you know. Females are inferior to men in the vast majority of ways. However, they have their strengths, and those would be promoted instead of being bombarded by things to trigger their core inadequacy. For example, females are routinely in magazines compared to models chosen by homosexual male psychopaths. Right? Think about it. Right? Walking down the fucking catwalk is a female who's straight up and down, and she's 6 foot tall. That's a gay guy's fantasy. It's an androgynous male in a female body, really. No tits, no arse. Yeah, very attractive. And an androgynous face, hair pulled tight back in a fucking bun, right? And walking in this, you know, she eats 1 wafer and a breath of sugar, you know, per month, right? And she's on heroin. So, females are bombarded with that, so they're made to feel inadequate by that comparison. They're told to be unnatural, to leave the domicile and go into jobs which are ridiculous, meaningless, there's nothing unique about them at all, and pride themselves on that, and they're hyper competitive, as all psychopaths are, and their strengths are not being encouraged, promoted. There's no strength, true strength, role models. They're immoral role models, all trying to ingrain this rigid and hardening pathology they can't get out of. And if I was to cut right through at the end of what I'm saying, what you'd find is they're killing themselves in their droves, because females are taught since infancy,
never let on. Say whatever you're feeling, never let on, because that's always like self-protection, and always intelligent, and always produces the right outcome.
right? So basically females are lunatics. Now the point is this, right? They're supposed to be smacked over the head when you want to fuck them, and then shoved into the back of the cave, heels either side of the fucking ears, right? Shag the arse off them, right? And then get a slingshot and for about 30 yards away fire chocolate into her pie holes, right? And that's it. And she's proud of herself, she's got all these wee smelly kids running about, right? And she just sits there, you know, with her heels either side of her fucking ears, just lies like that, watching square-headed poofs prance about in the television. I feel pretty, oh so pretty, I feel pretty and witty and gay. Right? Fuck. I've not watched television in about 6 years, you know? Not even 1 nanosecond of television. Man.
And it's not been a day too long.
Right, and the thing is this, right? I've not read a newspaper, however, what I have seen accidentally, right, was online. It was a newspaper, and down the right-hand side was nothing but bombarding females, right? With, here is a celebrity who's famous for fuck all, right? And she's just basically never in the house. And she is exactly what the Zionist wank-clawed fucking hunchback paedophiles want females to aspire to. A shape that she's got, you know, from a surgeon's table. You know, I'll have those tits on the shelf there, thanks. You know, needless operations when children need operations to go back to work in parts of the world that she might even be from. And in a nutcake. So that vacuous whore, you know, ends up copping off with some pop star of the time, and then, you know, predictably they'll go their separate ways and she gets half his shit because, you know, a paedophile in fancy dress gives her it. And this is what females are subjected to constantly, and she's dressed in this and she can't afford to shop in Rumbelows, but this chick's out wearing like millions of pounds worth of this, that and the other. But she's a scumbag, you know, aspiring to being a scumbag. Really? You know, you've been raised well.